Wolfgang Munchau is the co-founder of Eurointelligence and joins us from Brussels. Wolfgang, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Now, you think that actually the Eurozone's current form, or the euro, cannot survive. I'm wondering why, because it's the first time that actually we seem to be inching towards some kind of agreement. So why all the pessimism?
Well, it's not the first time, Francine, that we have an agreement. We have an agreement, every 3 months. And these agreements never seem to work. People get very excited about these agreements as they're negotiated for a day or 2 days later, but after they read the agreement and think about the agreement, they realize that it isn't up to good. I mean, the main part of the agreement, which hasn't been struck yet, the bank recapitalization is done, but the other really important bit is the increase in the size or in the leverage of the bailout umbrella. And that's going to be done through, through some of the most toxic mechanisms that we've ever used in the credit crisis. CDOs, monoline insurance concepts.
And you say one of the most toxic ways of doing this, because basically it it puts someone in, it sandwiches, doesn't it, all of these problematic loans, because it puts the EFSF in a position where it disturbs the market. Is this what you're saying?
Well, it makes it riskier. If somebody, if there is a default in the system, it means that the payments by the guarantors is going to be much, much larger than would otherwise be the case, and the political backlash will be fierce. I mean, if there was a small, accident and Germany would lose on one day 200 billion euros, there would be, I cannot fathom the political consequences of this. This is why people have been using toxic credit products, is to hide risk, basically to pretend that everything is fine. But the fact of the matter here, as with subprime mortgages, there wasn't enough money. Those who and we haven't got enough. The EFSF is not big enough for Italy and Spain. That is the fact, and they want to leverage to make it appear big enough.
And Wolfgang, what if you leverage the EFSF actually through the IMF? Would that put your mind at ease a little bit, or would we have the same concerns?
If the IMF uses money, that's fine, but the IMF has very similar constraints that the EFSF. The IMF isn't funded for this, so you can transfer the problem to the IMF, but ultimately the IMF's shareholders, and European countries are a big portion of the IMF, would have to put up. The only advantage from a European perspective to use the IMF is because they are a little diluted. Americans and other investors are also share the burden. It's a bit of burden sharing that would come about, but it isn't a solution to the crisis. It is basically a way to bridge over the next month or two until we have the next meeting and until we have the next conversation.
So, but when you say that there's a significant probability that the euro will not survive in this current form, are you talking about, for example, Greece leaving the eurozone completely? Are you talking about other countries having to leave the eurozone? And if so, would this be by the end of the year or take at least 6 months?
Well, end of the year or 6 months, I can't say. But I can say that I can no longer see Greece remaining in the Eurozone. This has gone too far. Greece will almost certainly have to default. There will be an agreement. There always is an agreement here in this place, but there will be an agreement to increase the so-called voluntary participation of banks. That agreement won't last much. New numbers will come out. Greece will ultimately default. There will ultimately be a hard default. When that happens, Greece we will still be in a situation that Greece will need lots of support for a very long period of time. And I suspect the politics at that point is both in Greece but also in the rest of the Eurozone will drive Greece out of the Eurozone eventually. The question is whether the contagion can be stopped at that point. That would require a very fast reaction for which the EU is not very well equipped. So there is a danger of a spillover.
All right, Wolfgang, thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. Wolfgang Munchau there, the co-founder and president of Eurointelligence.